Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles. I am C, and this is your weekly sport card chart blast. Sort of weekly, except when I'm sick, and I still sound like it. I feel all right, but I don't sound so good, and I apologize for that, for the nasally voice. And if I start coughing all over, we're probably just gonna roll with it here. So take a look at the price action of our favorite collectibles and see what's what here. You like this content, like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Appreciate you sticking with me through all this stuff here. So over the last month, the Card Ladder Index is perking up a little bit, but over the last quarter, lots of red. Baseball and hockey, a couple of relevant sports not doing too poorly here, but basketball is off decently, and your former leaders, wrestling, entertainment, golf, are really taking it on the chin here, and the high end is down. You don't see that too often. This is not what Card Ladder wants to see. They don't want that the highfalutin moneyed guys to leave the hobby. They want them coming into the hobby. They don't want them selling. But as we'll see, a couple of one-offs may be the culprits here, but again, that quarterly number pretty ugly. But the last month perking up just a little bit here. So for baseball, Derek Jeter, this is the BGS 9.5 foil with a big rip to the top of the range here. So for whatever reason, someone $10,000 card, someone decided to pay $25,000 for it. I understand that not all grades are equal, but that seems excessive, and even though you've had buying in there in the past, likely not something you need to chase at the current time. Mariano Rivera, also with a nice rip here, not an insignificant number on that card as well. So taking it from sub $300 card, $250 or whatever, up to its current price of $750. Someone maybe just wanted to be done with it, perhaps, but also in the BGS 9.5. And he is wearing his best golf outfit in that card here. And Alex Rodriguez, I swear I didn't pick just Yankees. These are just some of the bigger movers in the baseball index here. So New York, what's in the water out there? Why are you pumping this stuff up here? So A-Rod, PSA 8. Plenty of buying in here. It's a $40 card. Who cares? You like it? Go ahead and get it. It's tough to get that one in a high grade. So the 3-to-1 multiplier probably doesn't apply here in the 9 or the 10, because those foil cards do chip and get a little bit more messed up a little bit more easily than some other cards here. So anyways, down at an area where people should probably be stepping in, and they have, but we don't want to spend too much time on a $40 card here. So a card that I've been looking at in the PSA 8, I'm actually looking at BGS 8 or whatever. This is the foil, sitting at the bottom of its range here. I think at the BGS 8, it's a couple $100 less. So if you are looking for this card, look at different grades and look at different grading companies. Nothing new there, but here's your reference point back in 2020. Here you are again. Seems like a decent number for that card here. All right, a couple baseball names here. Mike Trout, PSA 10, 2850, makes it way up to $3,000. Can't quite close above that. We've had a couple sales above that, but those are one-offs. 2,500 is your line in the sand, where people have stepped in fairly quickly. And that's just your range for the time being. So it's a $500 range. A sustained break above this brings it up to approximately $3,500. We've seen those sales in the past here. A sustained break below it, you could see something like $2,000. So that would have implications across the broader card market if that was to break lower, because Mike Trout, best player in the game, Carlos, and no one's going to pay more for a base card than they are for Mike Trout, at least for modern era. Now, if you're looking for a Mike Trout card, the PSA 9 in his Topps Pro debut, getting towards the bottom of the range here, so that may be an interesting enough pickup if you are looking for a Mike Trout card and you don't want to break the proverbial bank. If you do want to break the bank here, then Chrome Autograph X-Fractor, numbered to 225 in a 9.510, starting to break support here, so that high-end market, again, those high-dollar cards, money's starting to come out just a little bit. There's multitudes of reasons for their people getting their butts handed to them in the stock market, whatever, inflation, interest rates, all that kind of good stuff. It's been talked about plenty. We'll just look at the price action. However, we don't care the reason why. We just care what is, and so that is breaking down. There's some support much lower as a few purchases, but gosh, I mean, it's hard to believe this thing makes its way back down to $4,000, but if it does, then the hobby completely resets to where it was before the 2020 explosion here. Manny Machado, your league leader in WAR. Mike Trout leading in OPS. Manny Machado's got the WAR with roughly 3 to his name here, off to a terrific start here. This is a guy that could finish as a top 1 or 2 player in that MVP voting. So if he keeps doing what he's doing, which he's not, he's got the elevated BABIP. We looked at him a few days ago. So we are seeing some regression, but the longer he keeps this up, the more he banks, and he can have an incredible year. And that's what you see out of MVPs. rookies for the most part is everything went right for a long period of time during the year. So if he's able to keep that up for a while longer, then what the heck? Maybe makes his way back to the top of the range. So again, not the most expensive card in the world. I like looking at some of the Chrome parallels. You can still get those relatively cheap, especially if you're interested in a raw version of it. But it's nice to see Manny Machado getting finally getting some recognition here. Josie Ramirez also having a terrific start to the season, and he's a perennial top 5 MVP type candidate here. So his price is hovering around all-time highs here, and top of the trend line here. So risk reward doesn't set up too favorably, but absolutely a player that I would look for on pullbacks. He's been too good for too long here, and I think it's starting to get recognized. So if it does make its way back down here, then what the heck? So maybe the rest of the market goes down there as well. If everybody sees a pullback, that's not as great a deal as it seems. But if everybody else holds firm and Trout and Machado keep rising, and Jose Ramirez gets sold off, then that does represent some pretty decent value on Soto. He just good. So we liked him in that 220 range. Here you are again. So if you're looking for a perfect version of that shiny card, 220 is kind of what we'd like. Haven't seen it for a while, but breaking kind of the top of this range here, made a beeline down to here, and I think buyers probably step in because he's good. Pink refractor. A little more limited, a little easier for demand to overwhelm the supply of the pink refractors, making its way to the top of the range here. So if you're patient, maybe you get a little bit better price on that one. Currently sitting at $1,600. We've seen that before, and it hasn't held for too darn long, but there's a little bit more buying here, and those prices are compressing here. So we'll see how that plays out. If you're looking for his autograph in a base version here, bottom of the range, looking pretty interesting here. If it does break, then 2,300 is kind of your target on that card, give or take. 2,500, whatever, close enough here. Sitting at 3,500, that's a couple bucks, so probably worth managing. For now, that's a risk reward that does set up pretty favorably. All right, Ronald Okuna Jr. He's back, and he's hitting a little bit here. So what are we doing here? This is the bat down, top of the range, and you've actually got a pretty decent line of support here. So that it collapses to the bottom range anytime soon without a big slump. Who knows? Who knows how that plays out here? But this is decentish price. Maybe you get a little bit lower if you're patient, but you're probably talking about tens of dollars overall. Justin Verlander threw nearly a no-hitter against the Twins, and that upset the baseball universe, so they're selling him. So here's your consolidation. Typically breaks in the way of the previous trend, which is down, and so maybe it makes its way back down to 300. Again, these things are thinly traded, so I don't know what the next one person is going to do. If we had millions of these cards being traded on a daily basis, then you could say, all right, that break, and it probably brings out a lot of selling. But with just one person taking it from here to here, it doesn't take much for one person to bring from here back up to here. But breaking this trend, sometimes you just shoot first, ask questions later. Sitting at $325, so we're not talking about tremendous amounts of downside. And this is a Hall of Fame type player that could draw some interest here. Christian Yelich, 4 for 5, had himself a cycle, but it wasn't enough to break this downtrend here. Just brought him to the top of the range. Now, longer term, Christian Yelich had a couple of terrific years. What were we looking at? 2018, 2019 took advantage of a favorable ball. The fly ball revolution. He was one of the first and one of the best to take advantage of that, but he's really fallen off the last couple of years. 2 years ain't getting it done. So for long-term purposes, this take him off your list. But for trading purposes, if he's able to have a decent season here, that's a trading basket type guy at this point here, but he is sitting at the top of his range. And Jordan Alvarez a couple of weeks ago talked about him, said, talk to him, right? Hey, Jordan, hey, want to talk some cards? No, that didn't happen. He was off to kind of a weird start, hitting the ball better than he's ever hit the ball before, but sitting on like a 100 BABIP, 200 average, and this was a player that coming into the season said, this is a top 10 bat type of player. And really, what was happening was he was pulling the ball massively, over 60% of the time, into the shift. Okay, that is since corrected. He's spreading the ball out a bit more here. That average has gone up. He's hitting bombs, and he's really looking like a top 10 type hitter. He is a top 10 hitter in terms of weighted runs created at this point here, but top 10 is not going to get it done. You need to be top 2 or 3 in season, right? Rubber meets the road here. So maybe he's a decent enough value here. If everybody else kind of the rest of those top 10 guys, the price is maintained, then perhaps he can catch up a little bit. but everybody else collapses down, then this is not the greatest value in the world. I like Jordan. I'm buying Jordan. What the heck? Why not? So at a decent level here, there's a lot of buying in this area. It doesn't get too much lower or anything like that. And again, he's having himself a pretty nice season. And you look at his Bowman Chrome, his Prospects Refractor 499, kind of in the middle of the range. Not much to do on that one. So it's not the biggest card in the world. It's a medium-ish card. Let's go with medium-ish card. For some people, it's a big card. For some people, it's a medium card. For some people, it's not a big deal at all. So kind of in the middle of the range there. So he is heating up, though. So if you're waiting for a slump, he already had the slump, but that may be factored in already. All right, Mickey Mantle. Talked about some of those high-end cards, and that index off a little bit. Maybe it's not the end of the world, because what we saw was a giant one-off, and a couple of people bought on the way down. And this is probably a more sensible area long-term in which to pick that card. But you had that one-off here, so it was around $50,000. Got cut in half, and maybe that is enough for the time being. Barry Bonds, this is the 86 traded Tiffany and a PSA 10, also coming back down to a level of support. If you're looking for this card and you've been patiently waiting, perhaps this is your area here. Break of this is bad news, but for now, this reference point has been a buy in the past, so not to guarantee of anything in the future. A couple high-end basketball. Steph Curry base, $9.99, coming back into an area of support. There's been some buys here, legitimate reference point, but if it can't hold this, there's nothing there. And so does this make its way back to like a $2,000, $1,000 card, coming sitting from $10,000? That would be bad news across the board for the basketball market. We shall see how this plays out. But if buyers can step in here, we've had a few in the past, and that would be a good sign. KD 1500, his refractor, $14.99, $12,000 card, also coming into an area of support. And there's a little bit more buying on the way up here. Unlike Steph, it was just a kind of a rocket shot of one or two people. Enough buying in here, so it does break. You might see some stair stepping down, but this is an area where there's been a lot more purchases, and depends on how patient you want to be, but someday maybe there'll be a better price. But for now, this is kind of your level, and just manage your risk if that is what you are inclined to do. Tom Brady, he's high end. And what we were looking for, we had the little break here, and this is where shoot first, ask questions later is helpful, and said, all right, that's a problem. And he's your target was kind of this area here, and that's where it is. And now you're seeing some buying step in. So it's a downward compression. It has to hold this current area, or roughly, I think that's like 14,000 or something like that, 14 and change. So that is your line in the sand on that card if you are looking to buy it. Patrick Mahomes, PSA 10. Optic, all right, shill bid, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, probably. I mean, anytime there's money involved, people are gonna do some funny stuff here. So there's funny business going on most likely, but this is the data I have to work with, and that is, so be it. So it's entertainment here. We're just having some fun. So bottom of the range, lots of buying in this one here. If it can just maintain this level as we head into the preseason, we'll see what kind of hype he gets without his big receiver target here. But yeah, I mean, if he can maintain this going into the season, maybe he can get some love here. What we don't want to see is a breakdown out of this consolidation. If you look at the 9, however, that is breaking down. So $1,200 PSA 10, looking at a $300 PSA 9. So it makes sense that these things converge at some point here. And more often than not all the time, more often than not, you do see the 10s catch down to the 9s in a downtrend here. So we'll see how that plays out. But 9 might present a lot more relative value for people. Maybe they just go for that one, and that takes away the demand from the 10s. And so that divergence is something to watch here. Josh Allen, silver, PSA 9, $2,500 card, make its way towards the highs. This is going to be one of the more hyped quarterbacks headed into the season, most likely. If you look at his Optic, PSA 10, $400, a little bit more reasonable. Lots of buying in this area here. So upside probably pretty minimal for the most part here. So if you're buying it, this is not a card to expect hey, here's a double or anything like that. But it's maybe safe-ish for the time being, as long as you manage your risk appropriately. Giannis, a little bit of basketball here. Here's another one. He's playing really well. MVP level candidate type player here. Once it gets below this current area, it snapped up pretty quickly. But what's the catalyst to really drive it higher in the near term, especially as we start heading into the off season and things of that nature? But he's playing well in the playoffs, and if that's not getting it going, what is? So maybe there's other versions of his cards that are going to go, but this Prism, what really drives it at this point if good play doesn't do it here? So I mean, obviously it comes down to demand, but people aren't demanding it after that good play. Maybe it's too pricey or whatever. But this is a really, really good player. So your MVP on that news brings it up to the top of the range, probably worth if you can get that, there's one person willing to pay that price. So, if everybody tries to rush for the exits, there aren't that many buyers for it, probably. I mean, historically there are, but right now, not so much. So your risk reward sets up a bit unfavorably for Luka Doncic have himself a nice playoff here. But top of the range coming off just a little bit. That is the silver, and so that downtrend continues, and we'll see where it stops. We'll know after the fact when it stops. So Jordan Poole having himself a terrific series here. So big jump. On some of the playoff play here. And now it's grinding its way lower to probably at least this trend line here. Maybe in the offseason, if this breaks, then you're looking at a $90, $100 card, something like that. Currently sitting at $225, and so for now, maybe it's a sit and watch type deal overall, and see how that plays out. We've seen this before with other players. It just kind of returns when you have this low volume. There's enough buying in here, but does eventually grind its way back into that area. So patience may be rewarded. NHL playoffs going on. This is one of your better players in those playoffs. Cale Makar, PSA 10 at support and getting a bit of a bounce, a little bit of volume there. I like that. So you're a bit capped in this area here, kind of that $800. What is that? $900, something like that. That's one of the drawbacks of screen printing these things. Instead of going with the live, I get to draw my lines, but then I can't look at these numbers unless I mark them out ahead of time, and I didn't here. So I'm getting some buying here. So there's your line in the sand around $600 or something like that. So it's had a nice rip off that. Perhaps patience is the way to go here. Brad Marchand, another player having nice playoffs here. It's interesting seeing his 10 doing really, really well, his 9 not doing so well. So again, you've got that divergence there, where the 10 likely catches down to the 9. So we'll see how that plays out. This is kind of an all-time high for that 10, not where you want to be buying that, but these things do tend to rectify themselves over time here. Sidney Crosby, said the kid, having himself a nice series here. $3,000 kind of line in the sand. Almost got there with a one-off, and now a rip into an area where there's been plenty of buying before. One of the all-time great players, and so you might just have to pay that price if that's what you're looking for the near term. And Connor McDavid, we've got our range here from roughly 2,000 upwards of 4,000, and you're right in the middle of that one here. So it's leaking lower a little bit. I think if it gets down to 2,000 or 2,500 or whatever that number is, then it gets snapped up probably pretty quickly there. And Steve Yzerman, the Hockey Index positive, and this is one of the bigger gainers in that index. $185 card coming off of $70. So kind of a one-off here, right around all-time highs, and something that's like, okay, that's nice. But if you want to save yourself a decent dinner out, then you wait on that particular card. And not getting Me Too does Mewtwo. He's doing just fine here. So near the all-time highs, as are some Pokemon. All right, we'll do a little actual real-life charting here. A lot of stuff going on in the equity markets here. And the bond markets, really, just the markets in general. And so without we go over that, this is definitely not advice, just what I'm saying. I'm not going to mention anything specific or anything like that, but we do have a break of the longer-term moving average, and when that happens, we've seen Federal Reserve intervention to kind of save. I don't know that we see it this time. And so we had the crash of 87, the Gulf War, the recession of 91, long-term capital management. So again, it stays above these moving averages just fine when you don't have Federal Reserve intervention. When it goes below these, then you have your bear market and your downtrend. This is your tech wreck. Above the longer-term moving average, bring it to previous highs. You had your real estate, great financial crisis, whatever. Then you had your federal massive intervention down here, where I said you no longer have to mark things to market. So they didn't do a lot of liquidity programs, but here's quantitative, easy 1, 2, twist, 3, whatever. Forget the order of all these things here. So this is the COVID crash or whatever, but really hedge funds were blowing up for the most part. But you can see each time the Federal Reserve has intervened to kick save the market. Right now, they're just kind of sitting back, and we are below that moving average again here. So we could just grind lower. What I'm seeing is not great financial crisis right now. I'm seeing more of the dot-com crash here, where you had a lot of technology stocks and internet stocks get taken on the chin, but value stocks, international stocks, they did just fine. And so we're seeing that here again. Value stocks, energy stocks, whatever, they're holding in, doing just fine. They've done their thing, played proper defense, while the meme stocks have taken it on the chin, and some technology companies here. So you have your overbought. This is relative strength. It is coming into an area where if we don't have a recession, hold on for a second here. we'll get out of the way here. So when you have a real recession, like dot-com crash, when you have a great financial crisis, the RSI breaks below kind of this 40-50 area, and it starts to get to oversold levels. Otherwise, it's held pretty well, even going back to 81. And so we're kind of in that zone right now. So if this is not end of the world type stuff, and for a lot of stocks, it already has been for the most part. But bear markets kind of bring everything down. We haven't seen that yet. So is this a real bear market? We'll see here. But we're kind of hitting that zone where the equity markets have reversed for the most part. Bonds, I'm not covering up anything here. Bonds hitting that 3% area where it has reversed in the past. And so those rates going down will favor kind of those higher multiple stocks and bonds, so they may offer some protection as of yet, getting to be overbought. So we could see some sort of a pullback in the immediate term. Not looking for this, but if it came back into that call it 2% area or something like that, we shall see. But that would help the markets for the most part here. So I've got this continuation pattern of about 1%. So the target is about 3.5% here, but I think we have to pull back first before we go there. US dollar, all right, making its way to the top of its range here. So we've seen this 2017 in the 2020 pandemic crash, whatever. This has marked the relatively the bottom of the markets overall when the dollar gets to the top of this range. So you can see that the market's kind of started to take off at this overbought signal. Here's your bottom in March of 2020 here, top tick appropriately. So perhaps we're there again. I don't know. Bitcoin breaking below its level of support, but enough buying towards the end of the day actually brought it back up again. So this is pretty highly correlated with the NASDAQ relative performance as well at critical support here. So this is a decent sign if buyers are willing to step in and push that up, then that could bring up the NASDAQ, it could bring up Bitcoin, things of that nature, and we could have ourselves a little bit of a rally. Overall, I would just say this, if you haven't liked what's been going on in the markets over the past month and a half, any rally that we get is a good time to kind of think about your positioning, your risk tolerance, and reevaluate that. Everybody, when markets are going really, really well, no one has a risk. Everyone has a tremendous risk tolerance, right? When they get punched in the mouth a little bit, then that's when their risk tolerances tend to change a bit here. So again, probably due for a little bit of a rally. I don't know for sure, but we shall see. But should we get it again, that's a time to just kind of reevaluate. Are you properly balanced? Are you comfortable with the risk profile that you have and all that kind of good stuff? So that's what I got for you. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of the weekend. We will talk to you later. Bye now.